The news of the alien fleet finally reached the Terran Defense Force through the most boring channels possible. Freight pilot Tejo filed a standard traffic incident report when he returned to New Sol Colony, complaining about increased congestion in outer shipping lanes due to large-scale alien tourist activity. The report landed on the desk of Traffic Control Supervisor Young Soo, who read it during his morning coffee break. He had been managing shipping routes for 12 years and had seen all kinds of problems. Pirates, space whales, amateur race competitions, and the occasional alien protest fleet. This seemed like another routine alien protest. But 10,000 ships was unusually large, even for aliens who liked to make dramatic gestures. Young-soo decided he should probably mention it to someone important. He walked across the administration building to the office of Defense Coordinator Young-soo. Yes, they had the same first name, which made paperwork confusing sometimes. Defense Coordinator Young-soo was in charge of military planning for the entire sector, while Traffic Control Young-soo just made sure cargo ships didn't crash into each other. "Sir," Traffic Control Young-soo said, knocking on the door, "I think we might have a situation." Defense Coordinator Young-soo looked up from his reports about mining equipment shortages on Europa. What kind of situation? The kind where 10,000 alien warships are hanging around our shipping lanes. Defense Coordinator Young-soo put down his coffee cup. 10,000? Are you sure? That's what the pilot reported. Says they declared war on us and seemed upset about something. Huh. Defense Coordinator Young-soo thought about this for a moment. Well, I suppose I should call a meeting. An hour later, 3 of the most important people in the human military sat around a table in a conference room that looked out over the bustling spaceport of New Sol. Ships came and went every few minutes, carrying cargo, passengers, and colonists to dozens of different worlds. Defense Coordinator Young-soo had called Admiral Dong-min and Fleet Captain Hai-wan. Admiral Dong-min looked exactly like he had 3 months ago when he first heard about the war declaration, tired and slightly amused. Captain Hai-wan was a smaller woman in her 40s with the kind of quiet confidence that came from 30 years of military experience. So, Defense Coordinator Young-soo began, spreading out the traffic report on the table. Apparently those aliens weren't joking about the war thing. Captain Hai-wan read through Tejo's report, including his complaints about blocked shipping lanes and requests for better traffic management. This pilot asked them to wage war somewhere more convenient? Apparently so. And they actually moved out of the shipping lanes when he complained. Admiral Dong-min shook his head in amazement. "I have to meet this pilot. Anyone who can get 10,000 alien warships to move aside for a fertilizer delivery has management potential. The real question," Captain Hai-wan said, "is what we do about this fleet. 10,000 ships is actually impressive. Most species can barely scrape together a few hundred." Defense Coordinator Young-soo pulled up tactical displays on the conference room screen. The images came from long-range sensors and showed the alien fleet arranged in what was probably supposed to be an intimidating formation. They're definitely serious about this. That's not a protest fleet or a diplomatic mission. Those are real warships. Admiral Dong-min studied the display. "Well, if they insist on this nonsense, I suppose we should respond. Captain Hai-wan, take the 5th Fleet and go have a chat with them." Captain Hai-wan nodded. "How many ships should I bring, sir?" "Oh, I don't know. 50, 60? Don't want to overdo it. This is supposed to be a diplomatic conversation, not a show of force." "What should I tell them?" Admiral Dong-min thought for a moment. "The usual. Thank them for their concerns, acknowledge their formal declaration, and politely decline their kind offer of warfare. Maybe suggest they try filing a formal complaint instead." Defense Coordinator Young-soo looked confused. "Sir, they've already declared war. Isn't it a little late for formal complaints?" "You'd think so," Admiral Dong-min said. "But aliens love paperwork almost as much as they love dramatic speeches. Give them a proper bureaucratic process to follow and they'll usually calm down." Captain Hai-wan was already making notes. "Should I bring the new ships? The aliens might be impressed by our latest technology." "Good idea. Let them see what human engineering looks like these days. But remember, this is a diplomatic mission. We're not trying to start a fight. What if they start one anyway?" Admiral Dong-min's expression didn't change. "Then you finish it. Quickly and professionally. We have schedules to keep." 6 hours later, Captain Hai-wan's fleet was ready to depart. 60 ships of the Terran Defense Force, each one a masterpiece of human military technology. The ships were sleek and efficient, designed by engineers who had learned from 3 centuries of spaceflight experience. The flagship was the TFS Sol, a heavy cruiser that Captain HFY had commanded for 5 years. It was her home, her pride, and one of the most advanced warships in known space. Its weapons could punch holes through asteroids, its shields could stop almost anything, and its engines could outrun just about any alien design. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Captain HFY stood on the bridge and looked out at her ships. They were good ships with good crews. She wasn't worried about the outcome of this mission, just annoyed that it was necessary. "All ships report ready for jump," announced her tactical officer. "Very good. Take us out." The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, crossing distances that would take alien ships weeks to cover. Human jump technology was faster, more efficient, and more reliable than anything else in the galaxy. It was one of the many things that made other species nervous about human expansion. They arrived at the edge of the shipping lanes 3 hours later. The alien fleet was still there, arranged in what Captain HFY recognized as a classic battle formation from about 2,000 years ago. It looked impressive but wasn't very practical for modern warfare. "Open a channel," she ordered. The main screen lit up with the image of Ambassador Veltara on the bridge of her flagship. The alien looked exactly like what human children drew when they imagined scary monsters: scales, claws, and angry yellow eyes. "Attention combined Concul fleet," Captain HFY said politely. "This is Captain HFY of the Terran Defense Force. We understand you've declared war on us. While we appreciate the thought, we're going to have to decline. We're quite busy with actual important things." Veltara's eyes widened in disbelief. "You decline? You cannot decline a declaration of war. War has been declared. You must fight." "Actually, we can decline pretty much anything we want," Captain HFY replied. "That's one of the benefits of being an independent species. We get to choose which wars we participate in. But you have violated galactic law. You have ignored our territorial claims. You have filed the appropriate paperwork and followed all established procedures," Captain HFY interrupted. "I have the documentation right here if you'd like to review it. Everything we've done has been completely legal under galactic trade agreements." This was true. Humans were very good at reading the fine print of international treaties. While other species made grand pronouncements about territorial rights, humans quietly studied the actual legal documents and found all the loopholes. Veltara sputtered with rage. "Legal technicalities cannot save you from the righteous fury of the Consul." "Maybe not," Captain HFY agreed. "But they can save us from having to take your righteous fury seriously." The alien fleet opened fire. What happened next wasn't really a battle. It was more like a demonstration of the difference between alien military theory and human military practice. The alien ships fired their weapons in massive, coordinated volleys that lit up space with energy beams and missile trails. It was beautiful and dramatic and completely ineffective. Human ships danced between the attacks with impossible grace, their advanced engines and predictive computers making them almost impossible to hit. When the humans fired back, it was with surgical precision. No wasted shots, no dramatic displays of firepower, just careful professional marksmanship that disabled alien ships without destroying them. Weapon systems went offline. Engines failed. Shield generators overloaded. Within 30 minutes, half the alien fleet was floating helplessly in space. Their crews were unharmed but thoroughly humiliated. "Now," Captain HFY transmitted to the surviving alien ships, "we're going to forget this whole embarrassing incident happened. You're going to go home, and maybe next time you want to complain about humans, you could just send a strongly worded letter like civilized beings." Veltara's voice came back over the radio, much quieter than before. "This is not over, human. The Consul will not forget this humiliation." "That's fine," Captain HFY replied. "Just remember to file the proper paperwork next time. We take bureaucratic procedures very seriously." As the defeated alien fleet limped away toward their home territories, Captain HFY filed her after-action report. Under enemy casualties, she wrote none. Under human casualties, she wrote none. Under mission status, she wrote, "Diplomatic incident resolved." In the comments section, she added, "Recommend increasing shipping lane security to prevent future traffic disruptions. Alien fleets continue to pose navigation hazards." 3 months after declaring war on humanity, the combined Consul fleet finally arrived at the edge of human space. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 10,000 warships representing 12 different civilizations, each one bristling with weapons and carrying crews trained for total war. The flagship Righteous Fury was a massive vessel 3 kilometers long and shaped like a ceremonial dagger. Its hull was covered in the sacred symbols of all 12 Concul species, and its weapons could crack planets. Ambassador Veltara stood on the bridge, her scaled hands gripping the command rail as she stared out at the stars ahead. At last, she hissed with satisfaction. Today we teach the humans the price of their arrogance. Around her, the bridge crew worked frantically at their stations. Tactical displays showed the positions of every ship in the fleet. Communication arrays crackled with reports from squadron leaders. Everything was ready for the glorious battle that would put humanity in its place. "Ambassador," called out the sensor operator, a nervous creature with 4 eyes and too many tentacles. "We're detecting a single human vessel ahead. It appears to be a cargo ship." Veltara's eyes narrowed. "A cargo ship? Where are their defense fleets? Where are the evacuation ships fleeing in terror?" "I don't know, Ambassador. There's just the one ship. It's flying directly toward us." On the main screen, a battered-looking freight hauler came into view. It was maybe 200 meters long, covered in dents and scratches from years of hard use. The name painted on its side read Lucky Dragon in both human letters and universal script. Inside the cargo ship, pilot Tejo was having a perfectly normal day. He was hauling 300 tons of agricultural supplies from the farming colonies around Wolf 359 to the terraforming projects near Proxima Centauri. It was boring work, but it paid well and let him see different parts of the galaxy. He was listening to an audiobook about ancient Earth history when his proximity alarm started going off. Tejo looked up at his displays and whistled in surprise. There were a lot of ships ahead of him. "A really lot of ships. Well, that's new," he said to himself. He opened a communication channel to the approaching fleet. "Unknown vessels, this is the cargo hauler Lucky Dragon. You're blocking shipping lane Alpha 7. Please clear the route or file for traffic priority with station control." On the bridge of the Righteous Fury, Veltara could hardly believe what she was hearing. Did that human just tell us to move? The communications officer, a crystalline being that chimed like broken glass when it was nervous, checked the translation. "Yes, Ambassador. He wants us to clear the shipping lane." Veltara's scales flushed deep red with rage. She stepped forward to the communication station and activated the transmitter herself. When she spoke, her voice carried all the authority of the Galactic Consul. "Human, we are the combined Consul fleet. We have come to wage war upon your pathetic species. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." There was a long pause. Then Tejo's voice came back over the radio, sounding mildly interested. "Oh, that's nice. Look, I've got 300 tons of synthesized fertilizer that needs to reach New Sol by Thursday, so could you maybe wage war somewhere else? There's plenty of empty space around here." Veltara's jaw dropped open. Around the bridge, the crew stared at their instruments in confusion. This was not how first contact with a terrified enemy was supposed to go. "Did he just," the sensor operator began, "suggest we wage war somewhere more convenient?" Veltara finished. Yes, he did." She activated the communicator again. "Human, do you not understand? We have 10,000 ships. We have weapons that can destroy your entire civilization. You should be begging for mercy." "Yeah, that sounds really impressive," Tejo replied. "But I'm still on a schedule here. If you want to have a war, that's fine, but could you do it away from the shipping lanes? You're going to mess up traffic for the whole sector." The alien fleet hung motionless in space, unsure what to do next. They had prepared for many scenarios. Massive human defense fleets, desperate evacuation attempts, last-minute surrender offers. They had not prepared for a cargo pilot who treated their declaration of war like a minor traffic inconvenience. Should we fire on him?" asked the weapons officer, a mechanical being whose voice sounded like grinding gears. "We can't just destroy a cargo ship," protested the diplomatic advisor, one of the gaseous ethereals. "It would be undignified. We are here for glorious combat, not to murder civilian freight pilots." Veltara was beginning to understand why no alien civilization had ever successfully conquered humanity. Humans didn't react to threats the way they were supposed to. They were either too stupid to understand danger or too stubborn to care about it. "Human vessel," she tried again. "Are you not afraid of our mighty fleet?" "Should I be?" Tejo asked. "Look, no offense, but I see alien battle fleets about once a month. Last week it was the Tentacle Confederation threatening to squeeze the galaxy in their mighty grip. Month before that, some crystalline guys were going to shatter reality itself. You all make the same speeches, but we're actually here, Veltara protested. With real ships and real weapons. So were the others. And yet here I am, still hauling cargo and paying taxes. Funny how that works. Teho's ship continued on its course, flying straight through the middle of the alien fleet. The massive warships had to move aside to avoid a collision with the tiny cargo hauler. It was deeply embarrassing. Should we escort him out of the area? Suggested the tactical officer. Should we demand to inspect his cargo? Asked another. Should we ask him about human defenses? Wondered a third. Veltara rubbed her scaled forehead. She was getting a headache. What did our intelligence reports say about human psychology? The diplomatic advisor's gaseous form swirled with confusion. That they are aggressive, territorial, and quick to violence. They should have attacked us on sight or fled in terror. Well, they got that wrong, Veltara muttered. On his ship, Teho was checking his navigation computers. The alien fleet was definitely going to delay his delivery if they kept hanging around the shipping lanes. He opened the channel again. Look, I hate to be a bother, but could you folks make up your minds? If you're going to invade, invade. If you're going to leave, leave. But this hovering around blocking traffic thing is really inconsiderate. The fleet commanders held an emergency conference. 12 different species, representing hundreds of worlds and billions of citizens, tried to figure out how to respond to one sarcastic human cargo pilot. Perhaps he's insane, suggested the Hive Queen Zixandra. Humans are known for mental instability. Or perhaps this is a test, worried the crystalline ambassador. Maybe they want to see how we react before sending their real forces. Maybe he doesn't know we declared war, offered the mechanical representative. Human information networks are primitive. The news might not have reached him. Veltara considered all these options. None of them made sense. The human clearly knew they were a military fleet. He had heard their declaration of war. He just didn't seem to care. Human pilot, she called out one more time. Are you carrying any weapons on your ship? Just a mining laser for clearing space debris, Teho replied. And a really good cup of coffee. Why? You folks need direction somewhere? A mining laser? The mighty combined Concul fleet had been challenged to single combat by a cargo pilot with a mining laser and good coffee. This is ridiculous, Veltara said to her crew. We are the greatest military force in galactic history. We should not be having traffic disputes with freight pilots. What are your orders, Ambassador? Asked the fleet commander. Veltara looked out at the stars, at the 10,000 ships under her command, at the tiny cargo hauler that was now disappearing into the distance with its load of fertilizer. Follow him, she said finally. If the humans won't come to us, we'll go to them. But stay clear of the shipping lanes. Apparently that's important. And so the combined Concul fleet, greatest military force ever assembled, found itself following a cargo pilot toward human space, careful not to block any more traffic. It was not exactly the glorious beginning to their righteous war that they had planned. 3 weeks after the Galactic Concul declared war on humanity, life continued exactly as it had before. Across human space, people went to work, children went to school, and farmers tended their crops. The only difference was that now they were officially at war with 12 alien civilizations. Most humans found this mildly amusing at best. On the asteroid mining station Series 7, Minho climbed into his excavation mech at the start of another shift. The machine was 15 meters tall and equipped with plasma cutters, gravity manipulators, and enough processing power to analyze ore composition in real time. It was a beautiful piece of human engineering. The asteroid field around Series 7 was rich in rare metals that Earth's expanding colonies needed. Platinum, iridium, and exotic elements that didn't even have names yet. Minho's job was to cut these materials out of space rocks and process them into usable forms. He powered up the mech and felt the familiar hum of its fusion reactor. The controls responded to his thoughts through a neural interface that had taken him 2 years to master. Moving the machine felt like moving his own body, just bigger and stronger. "Morning, Minho," came a voice over the radio. It was his shift supervisor, Yunjung, calling from the control center. "How's the big guy feeling today?" Minho flexed the mech's arms and tested the plasma cutters. Everything looked good. "Ready to go. What's our target for today?" "Asteroid designated 77 Alpha. Long-range scans show high concentrations of palladium and some kind of crystalline structure we haven't seen before. Should be interesting. Minho guided his mech out of the docking bay and into open space. Around him, dozens of other mining mechs were already at work, cutting into asteroids with precise, controlled movements. It was like a deadly ballet performed by giant robots. As he flew toward his target, Minho switched on his music player. The sounds of K-pop from 3 centuries ago filled his helmet. The singers were long dead, but their music lived on in the databases of human civilization. It was good working music, upbeat and energetic. Asteroid 77 Alpha was roughly spherical and about 200 meters across. Minho's scanners immediately picked up the unusual readings that Yunjung had mentioned. There was definitely something different about this rock. He activated his plasma cutters and began the careful work of breaking down the asteroid. The beams of superheated gas sliced through stone and metal like a knife through butter. Chunks of ore drifted away from the main body, to be collected by smaller worker bots. "Hey, Yunjung," he said over the radio as he worked. "Did you hear about the latest alien tantrum?" "The bug people or the gas clouds?" Yunjung replied. Her voice sounded distracted. She was probably monitoring 6 different mining operations at once. Neither. Apparently all of them this time. 12 different species got together and declared war on us. Huh. Yunjung paused. "Well, as long as they don't interrupt the shipment to Europa, I don't care if they declare war and interpretive dance." Minho laughed and kept cutting. The crystalline structures inside the asteroid were beautiful. Long, transparent formations that caught and reflected his mech's lights. They looked almost like art, if art could form naturally inside space rocks. "Think we should be worried?" he asked. "About the aliens?" "Nah. Remember when the Tentacle Federation threatened to squeeze the life from our pathetic worlds? That was 2 years ago. I'm still waiting for them to show up." "What about the Hive Collective? They seemed pretty serious about dissolving our molecules." "That was last month. Still got all my molecules, thanks." Yunjung's voice was amused. "Face it, Minho. Aliens are all talk and no action. They like making scary speeches, but when it comes to actually doing something, they usually just file another complaint." Minho had to admit she had a point. In his 15 years working in the outer colonies, he had heard dozens of threats from alien governments. None of them had ever amounted to anything more than angry letters and economic sanctions that hurt the aliens more than they hurt humans. He finished cutting the main section of the asteroid and moved on to the smaller chunks. His scanner was picking up some truly unusual readings from the crystalline formations. They seemed to be storing energy in ways that human science didn't fully understand yet. "Yunjung, you might want to look at these crystal readings. I think we found something new." "How new?" "Like a completely unknown to human science new. These things are storing energy in patterns I've never seen before." There was a pause. "Well, bag them up and we'll send them to the research boys back on Earth. Maybe they can figure out what makes them tick." This was how humans dealt with the unknown. They studied it, learned from it, and usually found a way to make it useful. It was one of the things that drove aliens crazy about humanity. Humans didn't fear the unknown. They saw it as an opportunity. As Minho carefully extracted the crystal formations, he thought about the war declaration. 12 alien species working together for once, all focused on stopping human expansion. It should have been scary. Instead, it was almost flattering. "You know what I think?" he said to Yunjung. "I think they're scared of us." "The aliens?" "Of course they are. We went from horse-drawn carts to faster-than-light travel in less than 500 years. We terraformed Mars while they were still debating whether it was ethical to change a planet's atmosphere. We've colonized more worlds in the past century than most of them managed in 10,000 years. So why declare war? If they're scared, wouldn't it make more sense to try to be friends?" Yunjung was quiet for a moment. "Because being friends with humans means admitting we're better at this stuff than they are. And for species that have been around for millions of years, that's a hard pill to swallow." Minho finished loading the crystal samples into his cargo bay and moved on to the next asteroid. His shift was only half over, and there was a lot of work still to do. War or no war, the colonies needed their raw materials. Meanwhile, back on Earth, xenobiologist So Young was working in her laboratory at the Seoul Institute of Technology. Her specialty was studying how different alien species adapted to environmental changes. It was fascinating work that kept her busy 12 hours a day. She had just finished analyzing soil samples from the planet Kepler 442b when her research assistant burst into the lab with a datapad. Dr. So Young, you have to see this. The alien news networks are going crazy. So Young looked up from her microscope. What now? Did the Crystal Collective decide our music is too loud again? No, it's bigger than that. They're all talking about humanity's imminent doom and the righteous war that's going to bring us down. So Young took the data pad and scrolled through the alien news feeds. The headlines were certainly dramatic. Human menace to be eliminated. Concul fleet mobilizes for holy war. Terran expansion ends today. She started laughing. Oh, this is good. Listen to this one. The humans will learn the true meaning of fear when they face the combined might of the Galactic Concul. Her assistant looked confused. Shouldn't we be worried? About what? Aliens making dramatic speeches. They've been doing that for decades. So Young handed back the data pad. Wake me up when they actually do something more threatening than write angry press releases. She went back to her microscope. The soil samples from Kepler 442b were showing some interesting bacterial activity. Much more interesting than whatever the aliens were upset about this week. This was the thing about humans that drove aliens absolutely insane. They just didn't seem to understand when they were supposed to be afraid. War had been declared by the most powerful government in the galaxy, and humans were treating it like background noise. But from the human perspective, it made perfect sense. They had real work to do, real problems to solve, and real progress to make. Alien complaints, no matter how formally worded, were just a distraction from the important business of building a better future. As Minho finished his shift and headed back to Series 7, he was already thinking about tomorrow. There were more asteroids to mine, more discoveries to make, and more impossible things to accomplish. The war could wait. He had work to do. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning at exactly 9:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. It came through the normal diplomatic channels that connected Earth to the rest of the galaxy. Most of these messages were boring trade reports or complaints about shipping schedules. This one was different. Communications Officer. Ji-Hai sat at her desk in the Terran Federation headquarters in Seoul. The building was tall and made of smart glass that could change from clear to opaque with a thought. Outside, hovercars moved through the air between skyscrapers that reached up into the clouds. Ji-Hai had been working the morning shift for 3 years now. She was good at her job, which mostly involved reading messages from alien governments and deciding which ones were important enough to pass along to her superiors. Most of them were not. The message that appeared on her screen was 47 pages long. The header said it was from the Galactic Concul, marked as urgent, highest priority, immediate action required. Ji-Hai had seen headers like this before. Usually they turned out to be complaints about human cargo ships being too loud or human colonies using too much water. She started reading. The first page was all formal language about grave concerns and unacceptable behavior and violations of galactic peace. Ji-Hai yawned and kept reading. The second page was more of the same. So was the third. By page 10, she was starting to pay attention. By page 20, she was sitting up straight. By page 30, she was reading out loud to make sure she understood correctly. Whereas the species known as Homo sapiens has repeatedly ignored diplomatic protests, she read. Whereas said species continues to expand without regard for established territorial boundaries. Whereas all attempts at peaceful resolution have failed. She scrolled to the end of the document. There, in big bold letters that were translated into 17 different languages, was the conclusion. The Galactic Concul hereby declares a state of war to exist between the Concul Alliance and the human species. Ji-Hai blinked at the screen for several seconds. Then she started laughing. She laughed so hard that tears came to her eyes and she had to hold her stomach. Other people in the communications center turned to look at her, wondering what was so funny. She printed out the message and walked across the building to Admiral Dong-min's office. The admiral was a big man in his 60s with gray hair and scars on his hands from his time as a fighter pilot. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion 20 years ago and had been running Earth's defense forces ever since. "Sir," Ji-Hai said, trying to keep a straight face, "you need to see this." Admiral Dong-min looked up from his coffee and the supply reports he was reading. He took the papers from Ji-Hai and started reading. His eyebrows went up higher and higher as he read. When he got to the end, he set the papers down and picked up his coffee cup. "They're upset about what exactly?" he asked after taking a sip. "Us existing too loudly, I think," Ji-Hai said. The Admiral read through the document again, this time faster. He shook his head and tossed the papers onto his desk next to a stack of similar complaints from other alien governments. File it under Cosmic Karen complaints and get back to those supply reports for the Titan mining operation, he said. Jihai hesitated at the door. Sir, shouldn't we alert the Defense Council? I mean, they did declare war on us. Admiral Dongmin looked up at her with tired eyes. Officer Jihai, yesterday the Andorian Trade Union threatened to erase us from existence because we were selling spices cheaper than they were. Last month, the Crystal Collective declared us an affront to crystalline purity because our ships are too noisy. The week before that, the gas giant consortium said they would dissolve our molecular bonds because we were mining asteroids they claimed belonged to them. He pointed to a filing cabinet in the corner of his office. That entire cabinet is full of declarations of war, threats of annihilation, and promises of doom from alien governments. We get about 3 per week. This is Tuesday, so we're actually running behind schedule. Jihai looked at the filing cabinet. It was huge with dozens of drawers. She had no idea they received so many threats. But sir, she said, this one is from the Galactic Council. That's 12 different species all agreeing on something. That almost never happens, Admiral Dongmin nodded. You're right, that is unusual. Most of the time they can't agree on what to have for lunch, let alone who to declare war on. He thought for a moment. Tell you what, send a copy to the Foreign Affairs Office. Let them write one of their polite, thank you for your input letters. That should keep the aliens happy for another few months. Jihai was still not convinced this was the right response. What if they actually try to attack us? The Admiral laughed, but not in a mean way. Officer Jihai, how long have you been working here? 3 years, sir. In those 3 years, how many alien governments have declared war on us? Jihi thought about it. I don't know exactly. Maybe 50? 63, the Admiral corrected. And how many have actually attacked us? Well, none, sir. Exactly. Do you know why? Jihi shook her head. Admiral Dongmin stood up and walked to the window. Outside, construction workers were building a new launch platform for ships heading to the outer colonies. The workers moved easily in the low-gravity field that surrounded the platform, carrying materials that would have been too heavy to lift on Earth. Because they can't, he said simply. Oh, they talk a good game. They have big fancy ships and weapons that look impressive, but when it comes down to actual fighting, most alien species just aren't very good at it. He turned back to Jihai. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've gotten very good at it. Most aliens have been peaceful for so long that they've forgotten how to actually fight. They think making angry speeches and writing formal complaints is the same thing as warfare. But what if these ones are different? Jihai asked. Admiral Dongmin smiled. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But I'm not going to panic every time someone with tentacles gets upset about our mining operations. We have real work to do. He sat back down at his desk and picked up his supply reports. Now about those Titan shipments. The colony on Europa is running low on water recyclers, and the mining station on Ceres needs new excavation equipment. These are actual problems that need solving. Jihi nodded and headed for the door. She paused and looked back. Sir, what should I do if more aliens declare war on us? Same thing we always do, Admiral Dongmin said without looking up. File it under Cosmic Karen complaints and get back to work. Unless they actually show up with guns, it's just paperwork. As Jihai walked back to her desk, she passed the Foreign Affairs Office. Through the open door, she could see diplomats working on responses to various alien complaints. They had templates for almost everything. Thank you for your concern about human expansion. We appreciate your input on our terraforming policies. Your complaint has been forwarded to the appropriate department. She sat down at her desk and started typing up a summary of the Consul's declaration for the daily report. Under the Action Required section, she wrote none. Under Threat Level, she wrote low. After all, it was just another Tuesday at the Terran Federation headquarters. The aliens were upset about something, which was normal. The humans were too busy with real work to care, which was also normal. Some things never changed, no matter how big the galaxy got. The massive space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most planets, made of metal and crystal that shone with its own light. This was the home of the Galactic Concul, where 12 different alien races met to make rules for the galaxy. Today, the great meeting hall buzzed with angry voices. Creatures from across the stars filled the enormous room. Some walked on legs, others floated in the air, and a few moved like liquid across the floor. But they all had one thing in common. They were very upset about humans. Ambassador Veltara stood at the center of it all. She was tall and covered in green scales that caught the light. Her yellow eyes burned with anger as she slammed her clawed hands on the speaking platform. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. "The humans have gone too far this time," she hissed. Her voice was like a snake, cold and sharp. "They keep taking our space without asking. They build cities on planets that do not belong to them. They fly their ships through areas that are sacred to us." Around the hall, other aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement. The bug-like Zixandra clicked her sharp mouthparts together. She was the size of a small building, with 6 legs and wings that buzzed when she was angry. Her large compound eyes reflected the light like broken glass. "Yes," Zixandra's voice sounded like 1,000 insects talking at once. "They terraform worlds without caring about the creatures that already live there. My people have watched them destroy 3 different ecosystems in the past year alone. High above them, the ethereals floated like living clouds of gas. They had no solid bodies, just swirling mists of different colors that changed with their emotions. Right now they pulsed with angry red and orange light. The humans spread across the galaxy like a disease," one of the ethereals spoke. Its voice was like wind through empty spaces. "They take and take but never ask permission. They act like they own everything they touch." Veltara's tongue flicked out, tasting the anger in the air. "In the past 5 years, they have colonized 17 systems in the Outer Rim. 17! And not once did they ask the Concul for permission. They simply arrived with their big ships and claimed the planets as their own." She turned to face the other ambassadors. "They have built trade routes through the Weeping Nebula, which has been a burial ground for my people for 10,000 years. Their cargo ships fly right through the resting place of our ancestors, carrying goods and making noise where there should be only silence and respect." The crystalline beings called the Shard Collective chimed like broken glass. Their bodies looked like living gemstones, all sharp angles and colored light. "The humans ignore all of our protests," their leader rang out. "We have sent them formal complaints dozens of times. They respond with form letters that say, 'Thank you for your input,' and then do whatever they want anyway." A creature that looked like a giant octopus made of metal waved its tentacles in the air. This was Ambassador Colthresh of the Mechanical Union. Oil dripped from his joints as he moved. "Their technology improves too fast," he said in a voice like grinding gears. "They started with simple rockets just a few hundred years ago. Now they have ships that can cross the galaxy in weeks. It took my people 10,000 years to develop such technology." "That is exactly the problem," Veltara agreed. "They advance too quickly. They spread too far. They take too much, and they never stop to ask if anyone else minds." She pulled up a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Tiny dots of light marked human colonies and settlements. There were hundreds of them, scattered across dozens of sectors. "Look at this. Look how far they have spread in such a short time. At this rate, they will claim the entire galaxy within 1,000 years." The assembled aliens studied the display with growing alarm. The human expansion did look impressive when seen all at once like this. What had started as a few small colonies near Earth had grown into a vast network that stretched across multiple spiral arms of the galaxy. "They terraform planets without thinking about the consequences," Zixandra added. "They change the atmosphere, the temperature, the very soil itself. They make worlds suitable for human life but destroy them for everyone else. And their breeding rate," Veltara continued. "Each human couple can produce multiple offspring. They live short lives but reproduce quickly. Their population grows faster than any species we have ever encountered." The ethereals pulsed with worried blue light. "Our projections show that humans will outnumber all other sapient species combined within 2,000 years, one of them said. "They will become the dominant life form in the galaxy simply through numbers alone." "Something must be done," Veltara declared. "We cannot allow this uncontrolled expansion to continue. The humans show no respect for galactic law, no consideration for other species, and no intention of slowing down their conquest of our galaxy." She looked around the great hall at all the assembled ambassadors. "I call for a formal vote. I propose that the Galactic Council declare war on the human species known as Homo sapiens. We must stop their expansion before it is too late." The vote took 6 hours. Each species had to discuss the proposal among themselves. Some wanted to try diplomacy first. Others argued that war would only make humans more aggressive. But in the end, fear won over caution. When the final tally was counted, all 12 species had voted in favor of war. The Consul had spoken with one voice. Humanity was now officially considered an enemy of the galactic community. Veltara smiled, showing her sharp teeth. Let the humans know that their reckless expansion ends today. We will send them back to their little blue planet where they belong. Far away, on a small farming colony called New Busan, a human named Hyunwoo was working in his fields. He had no idea that 12 alien civilizations had just declared war on his entire species. He was too busy trying to figure out why his gravity-assisted rice paddies were growing faster than expected. The rice plants floated in neat rows above the ground, their roots dangling in nutrient-rich water that circled through the air in impossible loops. It was beautiful and practical, exactly the kind of thing humans were known for throughout the galaxy. Hyunwoo wiped sweat from his forehead and smiled at his work. It was going to be a good harvest this year. He had no idea that according to the most powerful government in the galaxy, he was now a wanted enemy combatant.